Hello guys, and welcome back to another episode of Fantasy Fortunes. We're now into game week 9, so we're about a quarter of the way through the season. Now last week went very well for us. A lot of our predictions did very well, scoring goals. The right teams kind of won, apart from there was obviously that big surprise result, Crystal Palace beating Chelsea. So that was the main standout result. The point where we had a mare though was with our captain's pick. Now, captain's pick last week was between Gabriel Jesus and Harry Kane, and 80% of the votes went to Harry Kane, and he did absolutely diddly squat. Gabriel Jesus getting another goal, and at the minute it's looking like you've got to pick Man City as your favourites because they were just playing some sensational football last week at home to Stoke. But anyway, let's have a look then and see what last week's results did to the table. The table then still not great viewing for the challengers. As you can see, we've still got a Mongol at the top. It's not the same one we had last week. Diabetic Discoverer has dropped down one place. Tom Legresley, our goalkeeper, has taken the lead after having a strong week. The real big mover though, if you look at that top 10, Owen Leeson with a 75-point week, putting himself in contention. But as it stands at the minute, still a bit of a healthy lead for those two Mongols at the top of the table. So without further ado, let's have a look at this game week's fixtures. Now we've got to move quite quickly this week because we do have Friday night football, and obviously we've had Champions League action during the week this week as well. Friday night football is courtesy of West Ham playing at home against Brighton. Now West Ham have hit, as a West Ham fan, I like to call form. Really, we've not been losing games, we've not been scoring a lot of goals, we've not been playing great football, but we have, for us so far this season, been looking quite decent. Obviously, disappointment of that late concession against Burnley last week, Andy Carroll getting sent off as well, but that could be a bit of a blessing in disguise for us. Hopefully that's going to allow Javier Hernandez to play through that middle position on his own, flanked probably by Arnautovic and Antonio. And who knows, we might even get ourselves a couple of goals. Brighton have looked very poor away from home so far this season. So the people you've got to put in them for me, if you want to be put your blind faith in West Ham like I will be doing. Javier Hernandez, only 7 million in that strike position, very cheap, and a scrappy kind of game like this might really suit his poaching instincts. Antonio as well, by far our best player on the pitch last week. He's not pretty to watch, definitely, but my God, is he effective. 7.5 million as well in that midfield. Could be a nice little bargain. And I don't want to, so this is going to come back and bite me in the bum, but defensively we've actually looked quite solid in the last two games. Done very well from a defensive standpoint. So I'm even going to say Joe Hart. And I never thought I'd be telling people to put Joe Hart in a team, but at 4.4 million, he could keep a clean sheet, and at 4.4 million he's worth just even having on the bench as well for future games as well. So if you get him on for this week and then put him straight out of your starting lineup again the next week, that could not even be the worst thing. From Brighton, I'd have to say no one, really. Stay away from their players. Second game then, we've got quite an interesting one as well. We've got Chelsea at Stamford Bridge playing against Watford. Now obviously Watford won against Arsenal last week, and Chelsea lost against Crystal Palace. Chelsea also played Champions League football this week, and they do have a lot of injury problems. So this is going to be quite an interesting one. Their centre defensive midfield, which is what their team is basically built on, really struggling at the minute. No Kante, David Luiz is now out as well, but Morata has come back for them. He played quite well against Roma, but defensively they looked very poor. So this could be goals. I'm going both teams to score in this one, and when you're looking at goal scorers, you've got to go for Hazard and you've got to go for Morata for Chelsea. Both expensive though, both above £10 million on Fantasy Premier League. And then when you're looking at Watford, you've got Richarlison, great young player, only 6.2 million as well, so he's quite cheap to put in there. Seems to be involved in everything they're doing, and after his performance when he came off the bench against Arsenal, I think Troy Deeney's got to get the start. He's going to be looked to be in there against that Chelsea defence, going to try and bully them, creating chances for other people to come on and score. So maybe a couple of assists and poach himself a goal as well. And only 6.3 million as well is a very good, cheap Watford option. Result on this one, I think this could be another score draw. The third game is Huddersfield playing at home to Manchester United. Now Huddersfield have really been struggling lately. No form whatsoever in the last 6 games after what was a very promising start. Man United not been blowing the world away as they were in the earlier weeks of the season, but defensively very sound, so I can't see Huddersfield scoring in this game whatsoever. A couple of goals for Man United as well. They do have a few injury problems, but that means you get a chance then to bring in a few of the cheaper players. Obviously you've got the main suspect, Lukaku, who is 11.8 million and been very isolated lately. You'd like to think he's going to get some more support and probably therefore get himself some more goals. Rashford as well, he's been very good, but he's facing some injury problems himself as well. So it's more likely that Martial's going to start in that left mid position as well, and about 8 million he could be a bit of a steal. Other than that, Mata as well, probably coming into the team in term, well, because no Pogba, no Fellaini, there's centre midfield role there for him. Only 7 million as well, could be an absolute bargain. So this is a good chance to get your Man U bargains in there for the next couple of weeks, because I think they could really pay off. So then we move on to the Man City game. Now they've been sweeping teams aside and scoring goal after goal in the Premier League so far, especially at home at the Etihad. They are at home against Burnley this week. And even though Burnley have been quite impressive away from home so far this season, they've picked up some real scalps on the road so far. But Man City, you've got to say that this is going to be another comfortable one for them. Once they get that one goal, they're really turning the screw on their opponents and just piling on goals after that. And you've got your four main suspects really. You've got Gabriel Jesus, you've got Leroy Sané, Raheem Sterling and Kevin De Bruyne, who a lot of people are saying best midfielder, potentially best player in terms of form in world football right now. So you've got to get as many of those players in as you can really, because goals can come from any of them, assists can come from any of them. The more expensive ones, obviously Gabriel Jesus, 10.7 million, but he's guaranteed goals. He's such a poacher, gets himself in such great attacking positions. And Kevin De Bruyne, 10 million as well, more expensive. But some of the passes we've been playing in recent weeks is just ridiculous, and Gabriel Jesus is going to just feed off them relentlessly. Leroy Sané and Raheem Sterling, both around the 8 million mark. Definitely a lot cheaper, and obviously you do get that extra point for a goal from midfield, so they might be worth sticking one of them in. But Kevin De Bruyne, I mean, just in terms of having in your team for the remainder of the season, he's got to be in there really, even at 10 million. Put him in there as your primary midfielder, because he can make anything happen. And then we move into what I think is going to be quite an interesting fixture. We've got Newcastle playing at home to Crystal Palace. Now, a couple of weeks ago you would have said this would have been a very simple Newcastle win, but Crystal Palace turning over Chelsea last week, Wilfried Zaha coming into the team and really being that catalyst for change, show you what a little bit of pace in a side can really do to change around a team's form. Newcastle, well, been playing very good football. They're disappointed to not come away with a win at Southampton at the weekend, and yeah, playing some very nice football. So I think this is going to be a very good game of football, in fairness. From Newcastle, their main suspects, you've got Matt Ritchie and Christian Atsu in midfield. And I think Atsu's 5.9 million and Ritchie is 6.1 million. So they're both very cheap as well. And everything seems to be going through those two on the wings. When you look at Crystal Palace, like I said, the only person you can really be looking at the minute is Wilfried Zaha. The way he came back and absolutely bossed that game against Chelsea was sensational. 6.7 million as well. Not that expensive. So I say get him in early doors while you can, because it looks like everything is going to be going through him for Crystal Palace. Predictions for this game though, I think it'll be quite tricky. I think it is a game that maybe, just on form, Crystal Palace could nick, especially buoyed after that result against Chelsea, but more likely I think it's going to be a tight one. Maybe another 2-2 for Newcastle. Now we move on to a game then that doesn't excite me particularly at all, and so I'm not going to spend too much time on it. We've got Stoke at home to Bournemouth. Stoke absolutely swept aside by Man City last week, 7 goals against them. They're going to fancy themselves to get back, well, have a bit of a bounce back performance against Bournemouth at home, a side that don't score a lot of goals. But when you're looking at Stoke's side in terms of scoring goals and getting points, you can only really look at Bram Juve. Again, a bit of an Antonio, not particularly pretty to watch, but he definitely gets results. Involved in both goals against Man City last week, and only 5.4 million. He is a strike on there, so he does use up one of your striking positions, and he has been mainly paying off that right hand side. But 5.4 million especially, he's definitely worth a punt maybe in this game. I think it's probably going to be a sneaky 1-0 win for Stoke. Wouldn't put any Bournemouth players in there whatsoever. Also maybe have a punt on Jack Butland, quality keeper, England #1 in my eyes. Only 5 million as well, so definitely worth sticking him in there. So then moving on to Swansea versus Leicester. Now this is going to be another tight one. Swansea 2-0 winners last week. Leicester 1-1 draw with West Brom, but it did end up with Craig Shakespeare, their manager, being sacked. So how they're going to perform under no manager or caretaker manager, you don't really know. Under Ranieri, they did bounce back very strongly when he got sacked, but obviously there was definitely a little bit of something else going on there. So I'd have to say probably I'm going to edge Swansea in this one. It's definitely going to be tight, but I think this could be maybe another 1-0 or a 2-1. And if you're looking at who's going to get those goals for Swansea, you've got to go for Tammy Abraham. He's cheap as chips as well, only 5.6 million. He'll work his socks off. He's there to poach and everything. He's very intelligent. Up there, he's got it all going on to be a top player in the future. So I'd definitely stick him in. In terms of Leicester, I mean, obviously they've not got a lot of form to go on. You don't know if they're going to bounce back really well after the sacking of their manager. But in terms of form, Jamie Vardy's not been doing a lot. Riyad Mahrez did score last week, so maybe stick him in there, but at about 8.2 million, he's definitely an expensive risk to take. Another game that doesn't particularly excite me either, we've got Southampton playing at home to West Brom. Now, Southampton were involved in quite an exciting 2-2 draw against Newcastle. West Brom, like I previously mentioned, drawing 1-1 with Leicester. So I've got another draw on the cards here, definitely. Potentially another 0-0. If you're going to look at maybe Southampton sneaking a goal, you've got Gabbiadini, obviously played quite well, back to scoring goals at the weekend. In terms of West Brom, I mean, they're just a team that, I mean, a goal could come from anywhere, and probably their most likely players to score a goal are going to be their defenders. So I think, especially if you fancy a 0-0 like me, you're going to want to stick a West Brom defender in there, and then you've got the choice really of Johnny Evans or Hegazi. Hegazi is the cheaper option, but Johnny Evans, in my eyes, has got a better chance of scoring a goal. They're both around 4.7, 4.9 million mark, something like that. So definitely maybe stick one of them in there, but like I said, not a game that particularly excites me. Probably a draw in this one. And then we move on to a massive Europa League fixture in Everton versus Arsenal. Now, obviously, playing on the Thursday in the Europa League, they will have played tonight. For them, it affects Arsenal a lot less than it affects Everton, in my opinion. Arsenal will not field a particularly strong team in the Europa League whatsoever. Everton will have a few more of their first team players in there, but then again, they need those first team players in there because they need to pick up the form. Everton playing at home, Arsenal not great on the road this season at all, in fairness, so it could be quite a tight game. Everton, we saw what they're capable of, literally that last 5 minutes against Brighton at the weekend. They look very, very likely, but if it's taking them 90 minutes in each game to start playing a bit of football, then you've got to worry about whether Arsenal can put this game to bed before that. So, in terms of players from each side, though, there's not a lot to pick from. Everton, you think it's probably a good game for Wayne Rooney, really. 8 million striker, maybe worth a punt. And again, ex-Man U and stuff like that against Arsenal is always going to be a big fixture for them, and he's definitely put them to the sword a few times before in his career. In terms of Arsenal, their team is quite difficult to pick nowadays, because I think Wenger has kind of finally succumbed to the fact that there's probably going to be no Ozil and there's probably going to be no Sanchez next season. So preparing for life without those two. So your only really dangerous player that they've got in their squad, therefore, is Lacazette. At 10.4 million, he is an expensive risk to take. And not necessarily worth it in an away game, in my opinion. So maybe don't put him in this week. In fairness, probably talking about it, just stay away from both of them. Then moving on to the final game of Game Week 9, we've got the big one, Tottenham playing at home to Liverpool. Now, hopefully this is one that's going to live up to the expectation this week and not like the Liverpool Man United game. But you have to say, I think Liverpool did probably edge that one and did maybe deserve to win it on over the 90 minutes against Man United in that game. Tottenham just squeaking a 1-0 win against Bournemouth at Wembley, and still not really found their form there at all. If we look at the Champions League games in midweek, Liverpool absolutely smashing it, 7-0 winners away against him. Fair enough, yes, it is the Slovenians, it's Maribor, but still, in the Champions League, that's a massively impressive win nonetheless. Tottenham as well, with a very good performance away from home to get a 1-1 draw against reigning champions Real Madrid. So they've both got a little bit of form going into this one, but I say Tottenham at Wembley, you just don't know really. They've just not found their feet. And it's amazing, a player of Harry Kane's quality who scored as many goals as he has over the last 2-3 seasons, the fact that he's still got these little hoodoos hanging over him, like not being able to score in August and not being able to score at Wembley in the league, things like that. It's yeah, just quite strange how little things like that can kind of hold themselves over a player. But you've got to think that's got to end sometime, obviously. He does get enough chances in games to definitely put them away. So he's kind of playing this situation. I think if you've got him in your team, definitely obviously worth keeping him in there. If you haven't, not worth breaking your bank over trying to get him in there. Another Tottenham player as well, obviously you've got Christian Eriksen, he's about 9.6, 9.7 million. Liverpool, notoriously fragile from set-piece situations defensively, so he's going to be the one in there putting in the free kicks, whipping in the corners. So that could definitely be an opportunity there for Tottenham to get themselves a goal or two in this game. If you're looking at the Liverpool side, then you've got the three main suspects. Obviously, you've got Firmino, he's 8.5 million. You've got Coutinho, he's 9 million. And you've got Salah, he's 9.2 million. Coutinho coming back into form, he's the main one out of those players I would put in your team. He's going to be taking free kicks as well. And obviously, I don't know how teams haven't started defending against it yet. They'll cut inside and whips into the far bins. He does it so regularly. And a player like Serge Aurier defending against him, if he is the player that's picked to play right back, it might be Kieran Trippier. Then you've got to think that they're definitely going to be looking a bit fragile from that point of view. But they're your three main suspects. Any one of those three, they play so well together and so fast on the counter-attack that I think that, in fairness, Liverpool could edge this one with the way Tottenham are playing. I'm going to go out there, I'm going to say it's going to be a 2-1 win for Liverpool in this game. Yeah, 2-1. And then finally we move on to the captain's pick now. Like I previously mentioned last week, you guys really let me down. Well, I mean, you didn't at all. I'd already picked my captain. I'd already put Kane in there anyway. So, yeah, that's my bad as much as it is yours, really. But like I said, 80% of the votes went for Harry Kane. He did absolutely nothing. 20% of the votes for Gabriel Jesus, who bagged himself a couple of goals. So this week we're going to play it a little bit safer. We're going 2 players from Man City. We're going Gabriel Jesus, Kevin De Bruyne. 2 stand-up players last week, playing at home again this week, where they've been scoring goals for fun. I think they've got 17 in the last 3 games. And even though Burnley have been all right away from home, you've got to think that it's going to be another comfortable win for Man City. Obviously, you've got the striking option in Gabriel Jesus, 4-point goals versus Kevin De Bruyne, 5-point goals. But you've got to think Kevin De Bruyne is going to be the main player in there. And if Gabriel Jesus isn't going to be on the end of it, then you can more than guarantee that Kevin De Bruyne is probably going to be the one putting in the pass to whoever it may be anyway. So they're your options this week. Click on the poll up top and give us your vote and let us know who you're going to think. And we'll see if we do a little bit better this week, shall we? So that is it then for another game week of Fantasy Fortunes. As always, give me a comment below and let me know if you think there's any players that I've missed out who should definitely be in the team for this week, and if you think I've got any of the predictions wrong, as well as if you don't agree with either of those captains' pick, let me know who you think should be captain instead. Whether it's Lukaku, whether it's Kieran Gibbs, let me know. I mean, he's got as good a chance as any, right? But yeah, let me know how you're getting on in the league as well. I know I'm feeling confident going into this game week. I've gone up 40 places in the last 2 weeks, so who knows, I might be up there come the end of the season. Good luck to all of you in the league for the upcoming game week, and as always, it's on to the next one.